1,000,000 cups. That'd be great. And with that, I want to introduce someone who I have a lot of respect for. 3 years ago, I met a young man and I saw a lot of potential and talent, and so I plucked him from obscurity and put him on the path that he is today. I'm very proud of what he's accomplished with that. And so with that, Seth Etter is going to present about Open Wichita. Arrow keys.
Okay. All right. Yes, this one? All right, cool. All right, timer starting. I haven't started my timer. 2 seconds. All right, there we go. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about Open Wichita. So when I was asked to present at 1,000,000 Cups, I started with, we're not I don't consider us a startup. It is entrepreneurial in nature. I realized after having some conversations, mainly with Carlos Fernandez. But we're a nonprofit, and we don't make any money. I don't get any money from this. But we're, aiming at a bigger mission to improve the lives of citizens within cities by fixing terrible government services. So we consider ourselves a civic hacking group. And I really like opening up with that. I've had people tell me, like, you should shy away from using the word hacking. People think you're doing something bad. But quite frankly, people, we're familiar with the idea of a hack. A hack is a creative solution to a problem, just like life hacks. Everybody knows about Lifehacker, or most people. But in this case, these are city hacks, so it's a little bit different. What we want to do is look at what's wrong in the community, what are things that are wrong with the city, and what's just a really simple, easy solution that we can come up with to fix it. So I was on this conference call for a National Day Civic Hacking thing, doesn't matter. But I saw this random quote in an example document, and I really wanted to steal it. And I don't know if this is actually the person that it came from. Akeisha Grigsby is the person who was presenting at the time, but I never got an answer if this was her quote directly. But I really liked it. Building a community means offering your hands, not just your voice. Everybody knows that if you have a problem with a government service, you go talk to the government. Well, we try to offer a different approach and say, why don't we instead try to figure out if there's something that we can do about it directly? And then the government will work with us to implement those solutions. So this idea comes from a national level nonprofit called Code for America. They support civic hacking groups within cities all around the country. They do a lot of different stuff, but they're really awesome. And if you want to get some good history about the civic hacking movement and what they're doing, check out codeforamerica.org. Plus, that logo is really cool. I don't know, I like it. So what are some examples of civic hacking? So a lot of these are very small scale, but that's the idea. Think small. Focus on one tiny problem and then come up with a solution to fix it. So Street Bump is an app that the city of Boston deployed where citizens can install it. It just runs in the background, and as they're driving, it uses the accelerometer to report back road quality data to the city. So now the city doesn't have to pay people to go out and survey the roads. In a giant city like Boston, that costs a lot of money. Now the citizens are just constantly reporting back this data, and now the city has all of the data that they need to know where they need to focus their attention. So they're being more efficient. City Voice is an open source 311 system, so it allows for community feedback directly to the city in a more organized fashion so that the city can prioritize what they should be focusing on. 311 systems are like a really, really integral part to figuring out what things the government should be focusing on. I really want to see it happen here in Wichita. Public Art Finder was an app that was built by the community. Sacramento, California? That's probably wrong. It's in California. But it's crowdsourced data about public art locations around town. So this was just built by the community. If you're part of the community and you see some public art, you submit it. And then people who are visiting, or if you just want to go out for a day and visit art that's around the city for free, you've got this app and all these locations. So a lot of this is driven by this concept of open data. Holy crap. So a lot of this is driven by this concept of open data, and the idea is we're collecting tons of data all the time. The government's collecting tons of data, we're transmitting tons of data, and if we use that and tap into it, we can do really, really incredible things with it. So if you open this data up and give it to developers or any kind of creative person, then they can do some really, really awesome things with it and come up with awesome ideas. The other side of open data is that the government is supposed to work for you. A lot of people don't have that perception, but technically the government's supposed to work for you. So if all the data that they collect is opened up, then it allows more public scrutiny and transparency with the government. So yeah. And it also opens it up to data science. We've got these giant large data sets, then we can perform analytics on them that allow us to figure out how can the government make better decisions, how can they be more efficient, all kinds of things. So better decision making. So an example of this in San Francisco, they did an analysis of injuries, pedestrian injuries within streets, and figured out that there was just 5% of the streets in the city that caused 55% of these pedestrian injuries. It's like, okay, well, now we know where we need to fix the problem. Emergency dispatching, there is an app called Address IQ that analyzes data about 911 calls to figure out more efficient ways of dispatching specific emergency services to specific addresses based on their 911 call history. So again, more efficient use of resources. So there's a perception that this kind of stuff is just for developers, just for people who are out there building apps and using the data. That's not the case at all. Everybody has really, really awesome ideas, and we want to hear them and empower them in any way that we can possibly do. So the main thing I want to close with is that there's also this idea of civic entrepreneurship. So everybody knows that government contracts are incredibly lucrative, and the results of them, the products that they get from these really expensive contracts, are not always very high quality. Everybody knows that interacting with most government services online are not that great. So why don't entrepreneurs build services and sell them to governments? Why isn't that happening more? It is happening, but it should be happening on a larger scale. There's a number of reasons why it's difficult, but I think we have a really unique position here in Wichita where the city is incredibly willing to work with us and would adopt any of these solutions. And there's a lot of money to be tapped into there, so. Okay.
Thank you. Give Seth a round of applause. You might have had 5 seconds, so we started you a little. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to open it up for questions. So go ahead, and if you have a question, I've got the mic. I know Devin wants to go first, but I'm not going to let him.
Okay, just a clarification. If anybody doesn't understands who Seth Eder is, he's actually a young guy in town, but that he's an absolute rock star at what he does, and we're actually very lucky to have him. Here's a very important question. This is not about you, this is about what you're representing. What are the dangers of someone like Asia Kokulo, for example, out of California? He was in Oakland, and he was a hacker. He did write a lot of little bits of code that helped other people do what they do in little forms. What are the dangers of someone taking that power into their hands, in essence doing that ahead of time? What can you do to prevent the city from having problems with those code breaks later?
Well, I mean, that stuff's happening already anyways, right? Data, technology, all of those things are tools. They can be used for good, they can be used for bad. This is just kind of like a personal philosophy for me. I think that if you make decisions out of fear, it usually doesn't end well. So if we don't embrace the good things that data and technology can do for society, just because we're afraid that somebody's going to do something bad with it, we're missing out on some incredible opportunities. So can we completely prevent that kind of stuff from happening? Probably not, but regardless, it's going to happen either way. So.
What really, really great and really, really awesome things are you doing?
So my day job, what I actually get paid to do, is for the Open Gov Foundation, and we're a civic tech nonprofit that's focused on connecting citizens to the legislative process. So the idea is you can put draft policy and legislation into this system that allows the public or the constituents to directly go in and annotate it, comment on it, give their feedback before the policy goes to vote. So the legislative process is incredibly broken right now, so we're trying to fix that, which is a big task, but someone's got to do it, right?
Hi, Seth. I'm Amy.
Hi.
Since it's actually really important for nonprofits to generate revenue, and you hinted at that a little bit towards the end of your time, I was wondering what it would look like for Open Wichita to generate revenue, whether through grants or private donors, corporate individuals, or government contracts. Could you speak specifically to Open Wichita's plan for generating revenue?
I'm bad at money. So yeah, I mean, you pretty much outlined what the primary sources would be if we started going down that road. Right now, we're a nonprofit under the fiscal umbrella of the Make ICT Institute, along with Dev ICT. So, you know, we basically got easy mode as far as nonprofits go. So we have this big event, great time to plug, Hackathon ICT. It's actually happening at Riverfest this year on June 4th, which is the National Day of Civic Hacking. So civic hacking groups all around the country will be hosting events that day. And we've got a lot of sponsorship for it. Knight Foundation gave us a $25,000 grant to put the event on. Coke is a huge sponsor, Cox is a huge sponsor. It's been awesome. So there's definitely some potential there, but we need to, you know, make more formal plans for how that money would get spent. I would love to be able to take some money and fund actual contract work for these specific projects, but we haven't even been around for a full year yet. So these are things I'm thinking about in conversations that we're having, but nothing has been completely decided yet. But thank you for reminding me that I need to consider it.
Hey, Seth.
Hey.
Could you take us through some of the projects that are happening now in Open Wichita and problems that are being solved in the community?
Yeah. So we started a team focused on voter turnout and realized that was a really, really hard problem because there's nonprofits that are specifically focused on voter turnout. So we eventually decided to partner with KMUW on their Engage ICT event series, which there's a bunch of free stuff for out there. And we ended up building a tool called Remind Me to Vote. We realized with limited resources and nobody's getting paid to do this stuff that we needed to scale down on the project. So we created a project called Remind Me to Vote. And it's an SMS service. You text in, and then it subscribes you, and you get SMS reminders anytime a vote is coming up, anytime there's a registration deadline, and other voting-related events. So that's one. A couple of them have very interesting stories I don't want to spend too much time on, but that's one we've launched. We have another one called Infant Info. So the infant mortality rate here in Wichita is actually a lot higher than a lot of people realize. And one of the problems is that care providers around town and resource providers aren't connected or communicating. So a physician might not know about resources that could be available to a family that's in need, so they're not referring them to them. So the idea was just build an app that is a big directory of all the different resources that are available for that kind of stuff here in Wichita and distribute it to all the different providers. So that one's still in progress, but that's another good one. So
I have a quick one. If you want people to hack, what I think, I'll speak for myself, but there are probably others, you want to know what are quality assurance, which data stream or whatever is really quality, it's really good stuff, it's not messed up. The second thing is risk management. How do I know I'm not getting into something that's going to deplete my checking account, so to speak? So those two things, quality assurance and risk management. Yeah,
so those are things that you have to address with literally any project, whether it's civic in nature, whether it's a consumer product, anything. So, I mean, we deal with them the same way that any other group would deal with them. And in terms of data quality, that is something that is of concern. The city is collecting vast amounts of data, but when they started collecting it, they weren't thinking about, okay, we're going to release this in these nice machine-readable formats so people can do things with it. So a lot of it's not in good format. A lot of it contains personal identifiable information that needs to be scrubbed before it's actually released, but it's just all part of the process. So,
hey, can you elaborate a little bit more on civic entrepreneurship? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, so one of the problems with civic entrepreneurship right now, one of the reasons a lot of people don't get into it is because to go into a government contract, you have to have all of these crazy arbitrary boxes checked. You have to meet tons of requirements that a lot of times might not be completely necessary. And it's a lot easier to make a consumer product because you can just make something and start selling it. No one really cares. If they like it, they'll buy it. But that's that's just part of the convoluted nature of government that we've reached in today's age. So that's changing in a lot of places. And so it's this idea of a procurement process. And we're really fortunate here in Wichita because the city, as soon as Open Wichita started, people from the city immediately came out to us, Mike Maida and Robert Layton specifically, and said, how can we support? We want to help. We love what you're doing, and whatever we can do to help you along the way, we want to do that. So they're very, very open-minded and want to improve themselves however they can, and they want to hear from the community and how they can do that. So I think we can work with the city of Wichita on their procurement process and open it up to allow anybody in the city of Wichita that has a great idea for a civic startup or a government product, and then work with the government on actually securing the funds for that. So it's not just nonprofit, you're not just giving away free services. The products that the government uses right now, they pay a lot of money for them, and they're not getting the quality that they should for the money that they're paying. So I think that's something that we should tap into.
Hey, Seth.
Hey, Kenton.
How are you?
Doing well.
Good presentation.
Thanks.
Sorry, that's 3 questions already. This hackathon sounds really interesting. What kind of people do you want there, and what kind of things do you need from us now?
Participants. So the idea is it's a 24-hour period where we want anybody who has an idea. It doesn't, don't let yourself be limited. If it's civic in nature in any way, it's relevant. If there's not an app that goes along with your idea, that doesn't matter. There can be research that's done, that we can look at the data that's available and prioritize and figure out what's important. Any project can work as long as it's civically focused. If you don't actually want to contribute, or if you don't actually want to commit to participating for the full 24 hours and being on a team, we want to have a lot of different exhibits that are educational in nature, just to show what data is doing in other cities, kind of what's available, and just generally open up this idea of civic tech and expose more people to it. It's still a new concept nationwide. It's even newer here in Wichita, so we realize we need to focus a lot on kind of just exposing people to these ideas and get their brains churning. But yeah, it's completely free. It's going to be really, really awesome. So we really just want as many participants as we can possibly get. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to be joining the rest of the nation and civic hacking groups that are holding their own events on that day for the National Day of Civic Hacking. So it'll actually be our year anniversary too. We started on National Day last year, so that'll be awesome. I think that covers it.
So right now, how does Open Wichita function? So is there brainstorming sessions? Do you work on one project at a time? How many people are involved?
That's a great question, because that's all changing right now. I kind of just started by following the patterns that brigades around the rest of the country did, and so they would have regular hack nights, is what they call them, where just anybody who's involved, or if you're just curious, comes out, works on a project or something like that. So we just moved to having 2 hack nights a month. All of this information is on openwichita.com, by the way, so if you want to get involved, that's all the stuff you need to know is there. But we decided we want to start moving to have our hack nights be more educational in nature. So instead of just open-ended, hey, just come out and talk and work on stuff if you feel like it or not, whatever. We want to have topics. So we're going to start focusing on open data because it's just a very big cornerstone and foundation of civic tech in general. So we're going to have some people who know about open data come out, give some presentations, kind of, again, educate the public and get their brains churning on what the possibilities are. And then one of the hack nights a month, we're going to do that. The other one is just going to be kind of open-ended, invite people out for conversation, talk about idea brainstorming sessions. But yeah, my general style with anything that I do is not to be too rigid. So I'm always open to changing things. I'm always open to suggestions, trying out new things, seeing if it works. If it doesn't, change it. So these are kind of the ideas that we've had recently. And as far as the project, we started with, and this was me, I just was really impatient and wanted to see things happening. So I was like, anybody who has any idea for a project, come out and start working on it. We just want as many projects as possible. And realize it doesn't work that well, because we have a limited number of people. We're asking for people to work for free. So a lot of the projects, didn't get the attention that they needed. So that was the other thing that we've recently decided to change, is to have kind of a feature project that we try to pool resources towards. We're not going to shut out any other idea. Like if somebody has something specific that they want to work on and come be part of the group and do that, absolutely. We want to be a launch pad for civic projects. We want to be anybody's connection to the city and other resources that can help make their projects real. But we still want to have a featured project. That way we can measure progress a little better. So thank you.
Hey Seth, I wanted to follow up on Amy's comment earlier about generating revenue, and was curious if you haven't already reached out to Scott Knapp at the Procurement Technical Assistance Center here in Wichita. They help people do business with the government. And so I could get you connected with him, but I think that he would have some really helpful insight to share.
Yes, please. That sounds fantastic.
Would you avoid completely doing a disruptive app?
Could you elaborate?
So say, for instance, you had the ability to take control away from government and the benefit of the civic nature, for instance. Well, like Uber. Uber kind of took over, so disruptive apps.
No, not against it at all. So, I mean, the idea is government is supposed to work for the citizens, right? So if it's something that is improving the lives of citizens, then the government shouldn't be against it. Obviously, it's not always so black and white, but that's what it should boil down to. If it's doing something good for the city, then we embrace it.
Last question, Seth. What as a community can we do to help you?
Ideas. We want people to come out, get involved. If this is interesting to you in the slightest bit, just connect with us. We want to educate as much as we possibly can, and we want to hear ideas. I'm good at creating groups and doing this kind of stuff, but I don't always have the best ideas. So it's really important with a civic hacking group to hear from the community and what the problems that the city is facing, or the citizens in a city are facing. Yeah, so ideas, participation, definitely come out to the hackathon. That's going to be the biggest event that we've ever hosted. It's going to be awesome and huge and fantastic. There's going to be so much energy in that room. Yeah, anyways, I'm really excited. So I think that's it. Just getting involved, hearing your ideas, showing support. Spread the word. If you run a company and you have developers or anybody that you think would be interested in this kind of stuff, tell them as well. Even if you can encourage them to put a team together or just come out and participate individually at the hackathon, that would also be awesome. So I think that about wraps it up.